What's up guys, Kyle here again, and today we are checking out the new Fortin Tempest pedal. Overdrive pedal. It's something. Let's do it! Alright, hope you guys are doing great out there today. If this is your first time here at my channel, my name is Kyle. What I do is I take awesome high gain amps, guitars, cabs, speakers, pedals, overdrives, pickups. I record them through a simple SM57 setup, and I give you guys the unprocessed audio on your end. So if you're into E standard thrash riffs, drop C hardcore riffs, and dudes that sometimes have an inexplicable lisp when they talk, you're in the right place. Consider hitting the like button and subscribing on your way out so you don't miss any more of my stuff. Thanks! Alright guys, so today we have a pedal that I originally was not gonna check out, but I actually got quite a few requests to take a look at this thing, so I went ahead and bought one. This is the Fortin Tempest Overdrive pedal, and this pedal was designed the members of the band Architects in order to give them an overdrive that they could use with, you know, a bunch of different amps, because apparently some people like to use a bunch of different amps, even though they play the same thing. I don't know, you know, what type of person that really appeals to. Doesn't sound familiar to me, but hey, to each their own, right? So they basically wanted an overdrive that they could take from amp to amp that could really kind of give them the response and the control and the tonality that they were seeking out of each amp, and this is what they came up with. So this is a fairly simple pedal. I will say I do love the color on this. It's like kind of almost like a deep blue sparkle. It actually looks really good in person, especially under the light. But we're not here to sit here and admire how beautiful this pedal is. We want to see what it does. So as far as the controls on the pedal, you have your typical level, which is going to be your volume or your output, and gain controls that you'll find on pretty much any overdrive out there. Your gain is obviously going to add some sort of clipping to your circuit to give you a little bit more saturation if you need it. Down here you have a low shelf and a high shelf, and instead of being labeled that, they actually have the frequency curve as you would see it on a frequency graph, where you're shelving the low end or the high end to take away the frequencies that you don't want. So on a guitar amp, if you are shelving the low end going into the front end of the guitar, well, it's going to tighten up your signal, and the more low end you shelve, the more it's going to tighten up that signal and give you a controlled low end. And as far as the high shelf, that's really going to essentially kind of cut off the top high-end frequencies that you're going to find harsh if you're having trouble and struggling with the high-end response of an amp. You think it has too much, you can turn that high shelf up and it will cut off some of those frequencies coming from the guitar and hopefully solve that problem for you. So yeah, in a nutshell, that is what she does. So as far as that intro clip, I was using my LTD Phoenix 1000 with the Fishman Modern Fluence pickups in the passive voice setting, but I'm going to switch over to my Gallagher guitar because this guitar is giving me a little bit of tuning issues at the moment. We're going through nice seasonal weather changes here in Erie, Pennsylvania, so pretty much all of my guitars are at the point where they need to be set up again. So yeah, now we have the Gallagher in place. On that intro clip, I was going through the EVH 5150 EL34 100 watt stealth, and we have a few different amplifiers here that we are going to try this out with. We've got the Marshall JCM 2000 DSL50, we've got the Peavey XXX, and we've got a multi-watt dual rectifier. But on that EVH, I really felt like this pedal adds a very modern, kind of clanky upper mid voicing to it, especially once you start shelving a lot of the low end. It really kind of gives that quacky attack that you know, a lot of modern guitarists are looking for in that tone. It gives you a lot of that upper mid quackiness. So, you know, Uncle Thrashy McDickhead like myself, where I'm tuning to E standard and I don't really need that frequency, it actually becomes a little bit annoying in E standard. This is not necessarily the drive for me. I really think that this thing works a little bit better for people who are tuning down. But if you do like that modern mid frequency that you find in a lot of the more modern pedals and a lot of the more modern guitar tones these days, this pedal definitely has that. So this is one to look into if that's your thing. Last but not least, we are going through my Soldano front-loaded cab. I've got an SM57 on the V30. We're gonna go back to that EL34 Stealth real quick. I'm going to essentially do a quick run through of all the controls on this pedal, and then we'll test it out a little bit on each amp and see what we come up with. All right, so I've got a little bit of a ground issue on the EL34, so I'm not gonna spend too much time here. I'm just gonna run you through the controls. Here's the amp with no Tempest in front of it, and then I'll kick the Tempest on and start playing around with some of the controls and seeing what everything does so you guys can get an idea of what everything does. So as you can tell, there's a lot of range in pretty much all the controls. This boost has a considerable amount of output in the level control. So if you really push that up, you're getting a lot of output going into the front of the amp. It really boosts the amp very well into high gain territory. And then the clipping seemed really usable pretty much all the way up until you got around 1 to 2 o'clock. And then it started getting to be a little bit fuzzy and gross sounding, but a really good range, usable range on the gain. I definitely like this style of clipping when you turn the clipping on. It's very pleasant sounding. It mixed with the EVH pretty well. One thing I really do like about this pedal, most modern pedals or pedals that are aimed at the modern lower tune 7 and 8 string guys, they just immediately suck out all the low end. And this pedal does not do that. If you have this low shelf down, it pretty much retains all of your low end punch. So if I turn this off, so it actually enhances the low end punch because your level is adding low end. Whenever you boost, give a clean boost to a signal out front of an amp, it tends to fatten the signal going in up and it gives you more low end and it darkens it a little bit. So that's what's going on here. But with this control, you can really kind of fine tune that. So not only does it not cut bass, but if you have the level up, it actually boosts your low end going into the front of the amp. So if that's something you're looking for, in the E standard, it definitely helps. Again, if it didn't have that kind of quacky upper mid frequency, and maybe I can work it out because I haven't spent a lot of time with the pedal. If it didn't have that frequency, if it had more of a TS9 thing going on, I would probably really dig it. Honestly, I might get there in this video. So I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna turn on my Digitech drop pedal. We're gonna drop down a step. And let's see how tight we can make this pedal or this amp sound. right, so you really can control that low end with just a little bit of the sweep of this pedal. And again, that's just me in D standard. If you're doing an 8-string guitar, not playing. If you're playing an 8-string guitar, turning this up, you're really gonna be able to get a good control over those lower strings. Let's go over to the Marshall DSL and see how it handles this pedal. Here's the amp with no pedal on. Here it is with the pedal on. The high end really has a very modern sound to it that I'm having trouble with for my personal. But otherwise, it seems to stay very clear, especially when you cut off some of that low end. It sounds pretty good to me, even on the Marshall. It gives the Marshall kind of a more modern voicing for sure. Honestly, it sounds really good on the Marshall. I'm digging that. Let's go over to the Peavey XXX and hear it on there real quick. Not bad on there either. Actually, I think I like it on the XXX the most so far, the way that it interacts with the low end on the XXX. If we turn this up, the low end on the XXX is big in certain frequencies. Like, it's very punchy and large in a narrow scope, unlike the 5150 where it's kind of wide, or the Dual Rectifier where it's even wider. The XXX punches in a big way in a certain few frequencies, and this can really kind of keep that under control if you have it dialed up on the amp quite a bit. This is an amp that I'd like to hear down-tuned a little bit. Yeah, the more you turn up that low shelf, the more you just get kind of a crazy attack. Last but not least, let's go to the Mesa Dual Rectifier multi-watt. Here is the amp with no pedal on. All right, so not very thrash friendly at all. Let's kick the pedal in. All right, works really well with the Dual Rectifier too. That sounds pretty good. Again, very modern tone that it is imparting on the amp itself. Let's turn down the gain on the pedal. That actually sounds a little bit cleaner now, without clipping being added from the pedal. Let's add just a little bit of presence on the amp and just a little bit of gain. That sounds pretty good to me. Again, it's Just a little too modern for my taste, but it definitely doesn't sound bad, and it definitely does a good job at tightening the low end. It gives a large amount of signal to the front end, so it boosts the amp pretty heavily. Definitely does a little bit of a TC integrated preamp style vibe to it, but with a little bit more of that modern upper mid voicing. So one more riff, and we'll call it a day on this thing. All right, guys, that is gonna do it for me today on the Fortin Tempest Overdrive pedal. What did you guys think? What did you hear on your end that I did not hear here in the room? And if you guys own this pedal, or if you have played it, what have your experiences been with it? Do you think it's a pedal that is going to suit your needs, that is gonna work with your rig for the more modern tones, or do you actually prefer it for the thrash stuff and I just don't know what I'm talking about? I'm sure you guys will, but let me know down in the comments and I'll meet you guys down there to talk about it. I should mention, this pedal is $229 new at the time of this video, so that is the cost on this pedal if you wanna grab it for yourself. I don't know if you can still get them new. My advice would be to check Reverb or something and see if there are any used ones up. I got this one for 200 bucks used, so $229 new is the price. And if you want to help me pay for this pedal or support the channel in any other way, go down in the description of this video, visit my affiliate links, including Sweetwater, where if you purchase anything after clicking that Sweetwater link, I get a little kickback. It costs you nothing extra, and it really helps the channel move forward. And also, you get to buy something cool for yourself and deal with the people at Sweetwater. So everybody wins. Or you can consider adding your name to this list of incredible people by joining my Patreon community and supporting the channel that way. I take the money from the Patreon community, I invest it in gear for the channel, and every now and then I'll give away a couple pedals to my Patreon members as a thank you for the support. So if you want to join the Patreon community, I'll put a link for that down below, and if you join up, I'll love you forever, whether you want me to or not. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Kyle here again. We'll see you next time.